Welcome to the deep dive. We're going to dig into MySQL today. Well, more like your shortcut to speaking database.
Yeah.
And since you guys are here, I'm guessing you already know how important databases are, for making websites actually do something.
Right.
Dynamic, interactive, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at some excerpts from plus2net.com today.
Good.
They're a pretty popular web development resource. You familiar with them?
Yeah, for sure.
They've got a really good breakdown of PHP MySQLi connector functions, and you know how those work with MySQL databases. But let's jump in. This excerpt dives into something called MySQL. It sounds kind of technical, but I bet you can break it down for us.
Yeah, it sounds a little complicated, but it's really not. It's really not as complicated as it might seem.
Yeah.
MySQL basically stands for MySQL Improved.
Okay.
It's essentially an extension for PHP.
Right.
That lets it, PHP easily communicate with MySQL databases.
Gotcha. Okay.
Specifically versions 4.1 and above.
So PHP is the language. MySQL is the database.
Right.
And MySQL is like the
translator.
translator.
Yeah.
There you go.
Perfect.
You see, websites these days, they're not just static pages anymore. I mean, they need to store data and retrieve it constantly.
Right.
User accounts, think about product catalogs, online forums. All that stuff lives in databases.
Sure.
And MySQL is what lets your website, built with PHP, of course, access all that. All that data, that's stored in the MySQL database.
So it's like the crucial link between the front end of a website, what the users actually see.
Right. And the back end where all the data is stored.
Exactly.
Okay.
Without MySQL, building dynamic websites, data-driven websites, would be incredibly difficult. It's like trying to order a pizza in Italian without speaking a word of Italian.
Right.
You might be able to point at a menu,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't be able to really have a conversation.
Right.
Or customize your order.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
MySQL gives you that fluency.
I like that analogy.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's more than just retrieving data. It's about having like a real back and forth
Exactly.
conversation
Yeah.
between the website and the database.
Precisely. And that's where things get really interesting. Because MySQL offers a whole bunch of features that make this communication not only possible, but also secure and efficient.
Okay. That's what I was hoping we'd get into. So tell me about these features. What are some of these features that make it so powerful and essential for developers?
Well, the Plus2Net article talks about a few key features.
Okay.
One that caught my eye was prepared statements. Sounds pretty technical,
Yeah.
but they make a big deal about it for security.
Right.
Can you break that down for me a little bit? Why
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So prepared statements are one of the most important security features of MySQL.
Okay.
Imagine like you're building a website, right? And you want users to be able to log in.
Right.
So without getting too technical, when a user enters their username and password, that information gets sent to the database, right?
To see if it matches.
Right.
But what if someone tries to, exploit that?
Exploit, you mean like hack it?
Exactly. They could try to, insert malicious code instead of a username or password.
Oh, okay.
It's a very common hacking technique
Wow.
called SQL injection.
Oh,
But this is where prepared statements come in.
okay.
Think of it as a security checkpoint, basically.
Okay.
It separates the actual data being sent, like the username and password, from the code that's used to actually query the database.
Oh, okay.
Because even if someone tries to, sneak in some malicious code,
Right.
the database doesn't see it as code,
Yeah.
It just sees it as, harmless data.
So it's like putting that information in a, was it a tamper-proof envelope
There you go.
before you send it off?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Prepared statements are like that extra layer of security.
Okay.
Makes it much harder for hackers to exploit those vulnerabilities.
Got it.
And the best part is, besides the security, they can also make your website faster,
Oh, okay.
especially when you're dealing with lots of database requests.
That's a win-win. All right. Another thing the article mentioned was transactions.
Right.
And to be honest, I don't totally get what they do or why they're important.
Yeah, so transactions are all about making sure your data doesn't get messed up,
Okay.
that it maintains its integrity.
Got it.
So imagine, someone's buying something on your website.
Okay.
Seems simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
But behind the scenes, that's a bunch of steps in the database,
Right.
right? You've got to check if you have it in stock, Got to update the inventory, take the payment, update their order history.
Right, right.
A transaction groups all those actions into one unit.
So it's not just one change. You're making sure a bunch of changes happen together.
Exactly. And here's the really important part. If any one of those steps fails, for any reason, the entire transaction fails.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right? So let's say, the payment gateway times out or something.
Right.
The inventory won't be touched.
Okay.
The user won't end up with like a ghost order or something.
Yeah.
It just makes sure everything stays consistent.
So it's like a safety net for your data.
Exactly.
Prevents those uh-oh moments.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Transactions are super important. Anywhere that data integrity is really, really critical.
This is fascinating. I never realized how much goes on behind the scenes of even simple website stuff.
Oh, it's a whole hidden world, really.
Right. Okay, so we've got MySQL interacting with databases, some of the key features.
Right.
But your article also says that MySQL isn't always the best tool for the job.
Right.
Which I thought was really interesting. It even talks about this other option called PDO. What's that about?
Yeah, you're right. MySQL isn't, always the perfect tool for every job.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's like having like a specialist on your team.
Okay.
They're really good at what they do. Right.
Right.
But then there might be times when you just need someone who has like a broader skill set.
Got it.
That's where PDO comes in.
Okay.
So it's for PHP data objects.
Okay. So if MySQL is the specialist, PDO is more like the generalist.
Exactly. Exactly. So the beauty of PDO is its flexibility.
Okay.
MySQL is built for MySQL databases.
Right.
But PDO can talk to a whole bunch more.
Oh, wow.
You've got like PostgreSQL, Squate, Oracle. PDO can work with all of them.
Okay, that's really useful, especially if you're working on something and you might have to switch databases down the line.
Exactly. So let's say, you start out with MySQL, right? And then you figure out, okay, we need the features of this other database system. If you built everything with PDO, that transition is way easier. You don't have to rewrite a ton of code.
Oh, that makes sense. That's a huge advantage.
Huge.
Yeah.
And plus, a lot of times PDO, it kind of like leads to cleaner coding practices in general.
Okay.
Because it's object-oriented. So your code ends up more reusable, easier to maintain in the long run, all that good stuff.
So it's like future-proofing your code a little bit, too.
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any downsides? I mean, when would I still want to use MySQLi?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are definitely cases where MySQLi might still be the way to go. Like, for example, if you're working on something that's only using MySQLi, and speed is super, super important.
Okay.
MySQLi might be a little bit faster.
How come?
Well, because it's laser focused, right? It's just MySQL. So it can squeeze out a little extra performance.
Yeah.
Especially for really, really complex queries or when you're working with just tons of data. It's like taking the express train.
Okay.
You get there faster,
Yeah.
but it only goes to one place.
That makes sense. Okay. So if you're working on something, speed is critical, you're sticking with MySQL,
Right.
MySQL could be the way to go.
Exactly. And, honestly, for people who are just starting out with databases,
Yeah.
only worked with MySQL so far, MySQL might feel a little easier at first,
Yeah.
because it's not quite as abstract as PDO.
So it's kind of a trade-off then.
Yeah.
Between ease of use and flexibility.
Yeah, for sure.
It sounds like choosing between these two really depends on what you're working on and what's important to you as the developer, right?
Absolutely. And that's part of the beauty of programming,
Wow.
right? You have all these different tools and different ways to do the same thing. The important part is you just got to know which one to pick for the job.
Right. This has been really, really interesting. I feel like I've leveled up my understanding of how databases work.
Awesome.
And all these tools we have, like MySQL and PDO. I mean,
Right.
It's amazing how much goes into making websites do what they do.
Yeah, for sure. It's a whole world,
It really is. It's really fascinating. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive here on MySQLi and database interactions and all that good stuff. Hopefully you at home found this as interesting as I did.
Yeah.
And hey, next time you're browsing the web, take a second to think about all the stuff happening behind the scenes to make it all work.
Right.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.